address EBRD. Rami Samain, EBRD has been actively supporting the government of Egypt in a number of priority sectors, especially in to try and select destinations and provide recommendations as to ways of meeting the current opportunities. And following the COP27, EBRD launched the NWEFI initiative with the government of Egypt and several development partners. NWEFI is the nexus for water, food, and energy initiative. And this is going to require a lot of restructuring and building the capacity of human capital to meet future skills that will be taking place or within this initiative. Of course, youth and women are categorized as vulnerable groups, and we would like to hear a little bit more with regards to EBRD's strategy for inclusion, and how is it, what kind of policies are required in order to meet certain international standards that would facilitate equitable employment in the countries of destination and host countries as well.
Thank you very much, Shuruk. First, thank you very much for inviting me to this panel. It's a great honor to be here among such a distinguished panelists. To answer your question, I'll structure it in two contexts. One relevant to methodologies, mechanism, and standards, and the other one will revert to the inclusive business model and attaining for young men and women. We all know the impact of climate change and digital revolution that is disrupting the world of work in general and impacting how labor markets are operating. And, and in this context, this requires policymakers and systems, education systems, to continuously cope and thus continuously develop skills development systems starting from preschool. I'm fine, thank you. Starting from preschool to school to TVET system and then universities. And while this is a huge endeavor, it requires a lot of investment and a lot of effort. This also presents an opportunity because whatever skills, the quality and quantity of skills that will be demanded in the market in the coming few years at the medium term do not exist now, and do not exist now in Egypt and virtually everywhere else in any other countries in the world. So theoretically, countries that have a competitive advantage that has a heads up of upgrading their education system and skills development system will have that competitive edge for potential expedited economic growth at the macro level or the sectoral level. And in this context, I will answer your question through emphasizing the role of the private sector. So one very important mechanism for ensuring meeting international standards for skills demands is basically a stronger partnership with the private sector that is driven by profitability and always seeking for competitive edges in line with economic transformation, green economic transformation, and digital transformation. And that inevitably reflects on the type of skills that will be needed to cope with this competitive edge. Now, we talked about sector skills councils, and naturally we are focusing on the role of the private sector within the councils to improve current skills demand in the market, current skills needs in the market. But the private sector is best suited to help policymakers in institutionalizing a skills forecasting mechanism and anticipating what skills will be needed And those skills are the same anticipated locally and internationally, which means that one of the important mechanisms to attain that alignment with international requirements would be a stronger partnership with the private sector. Now, in the context of mobility and labor mobility, maybe this can be shifted to bilateral relationships among private sector, quote unquote. So maybe one of the things that should be integrated as a mechanism for that is to invite industry partners from different countries, countries of destination, targeted countries of destinations, to Egypt, for example, and provide a demonstrational outlook of Egyptian skills outlook in Egypt. And that will improve and enhance the image and impression of industry partners from countries of destinations to the labor force and the skills development trajectory of Egypt. Now, let's not forget that this is a win-win situation. So countries of destination have equal vested interest as countries of origin because, for obvious reasons, let's not go into the details. So countries of destinations also have vested interest in receiving qualified labor, and countries of origin are interested in exporting those qualified labor. Now, it takes two to tango, which means that it's to both countries' interest to devise proper and the right mobility scheme. And that leads to another sort of a mechanism for ensuring alignment with international standards, maybe on the bilateral level at least, is a proper established policy dialogue between country of origin and country of destination to formulate mediation agreements between the two countries. But that could also shift at the macro level and could also be done at the sectoral level, where maybe at the sectoral level jointly design sector-specific strategy and establish bilateral recognition agreements and mechanism between countries of operations and countries of destination. Now, you mentioned the COP and WAFI, and I think one of the most important mechanisms that should be integrated into the design of policies relevant to mobility schemes is the just transition approach. It is a mechanism that needs to be integrated into the design of the strategies for equitable employment. Now, just transition, we all know that it aims to ensure the benefits of green economic transition are shared while at the same time ensuring protection for young men and women from being left behind. At EBRD, we have 3 decades of advocating and investing in transition towards inclusive and sustainable market economies. And we have comparative advantage in supporting this green transition with our inclusive business model that focuses on the coping and updating the skills relevant to digital transformation and green transformation. I think I'll stop here. I think that covers it all. Thank you.